Why fearful avoidants chase and dismissive avoidants withdraw. Fearful avoidants are trapped in a constant battle between desire and fear, and this tension shapes everything they do in relationships. They want closeness, but the closer someone gets, the more their fear of being engulfed or rejected rises sharply. This is why they often chase, but their chase is never simple. It's filled with anxiety, hesitation, and doubt. Every pursuit they make carries a hidden question. Will they abandon me if I fully show up? They are acutely aware of their vulnerability, and yet they cannot resist the pull of someone who makes them feel seen. The chase is not about control, it is about survival, a desperate attempt to test if closeness is safe. When they feel even the slightest hint of rejection or distance, their anxiety spikes, triggering an internal panic that feels almost unbearable. This is where the dynamic with a dismissive avoidant becomes so magnetic and volatile. Dismissive avoidants naturally withdraw because intimacy challenges their independence, and their internal narrative tells them closeness is dangerous. They do not chase because their emotional system prioritizes self-protection above connection, making withdrawal their default strategy. When a fearful avoidant chases, they often do so at the exact moment the dismissive avoidant feels the urge to retreat. This creates a push-pull dance that can feel chaotic, exhausting, and deeply confusing to both parties. The fearful avoidant misinterprets withdrawal as disinterest or a lack of love, while the dismissive avoidant sees chasing as pressure or emotional suffocation. Neither party is wrong. They are simply wired differently, and the tension is a reflection of their attachment strategies clashing. What makes this dynamic addictive is that both types are unconsciously seeking what they cannot have. Fearful avoidants seek safety and independence, and dismissive avoidants crave connection without losing freedom. Every cycle of chase and withdrawal reinforces their internal fears and unmet needs, creating a loop that feels both familiar and unbearable. Fearful avoidants often overanalyze the smallest cues, interpreting neutral behavior as potential rejection or abandonment. Dismissive avoidants, on the other hand, interpret emotional intensity as a threat to their autonomy, pulling away before anything feels too real. This pattern teaches both parties powerful but painful lessons about intimacy, boundaries, and self-protection. Ironically, the moments when they feel closest are also the moments that scare them the most, triggering automatic defense mechanisms. For the fearful avoidant, chasing becomes an act of testing love, loyalty, and the limits of the other person's patience. For the dismissive avoidant, withdrawal is a shield that protects them from feeling trapped, exposed, or dependent. Understanding this dynamic requires acknowledging the paradox. The very traits that make them compatible also make them volatile. Fearful avoidants must confront their fear of abandonment without trying to control the dismissive partner, which is often easier said than done. Dismissive avoidants must confront their fear of intimacy without shutting down or retreating into isolation. When both can recognize their patterns without judgment, they gain the rare chance to break the loop, but it demands immense self-awareness. Therapy, emotional literacy, and conscious communication are not optional. They are essential for shifting the cycle. For the fearful avoidant, learning to pause instead of chase teaches self-soothing and self-reliance. For the dismissive avoidant, allowing presence without retreat teaches vulnerability and trust. When both do the inner work, the chase and withdrawal transforms into conscious movement, not reactive patterns. This is the moment the dynamic can shift from toxic loops to complementary growth, where each challenges the other to evolve. Until that point, the cycle repeats, often more intensely with every iteration, because both are unconsciously mirroring fear and avoidance. Fearful avoidants are drawn to dismissive partners because they unconsciously seek the exact challenge their fears create, a paradox of desire and dread. Dismissive avoidants are drawn to fearful partners because they unconsciously seek connection without surrendering autonomy, a mirror to their own inner conflict. The beauty and tragedy of this pairing lies in its ability to force each party to confront what they most avoid: vulnerability, trust, and emotional honesty. Every chase and withdrawal carries a hidden lesson about boundaries, self-worth, and emotional courage. The more a fearful avoidant chases with awareness, the less reactive they become, creating space for real intimacy to form. The more a dismissive avoidant allows presence without retreat, the more they learn that closeness does not equal loss of self. This dynamic is not doomed, but it is not easy, and it requires radical honesty and deep emotional work from both sides. The moment a fearful avoidant stops chasing out of fear and begins chasing out of choice, the energy of the relationship changes. The moment a dismissive avoidant stops withdrawing out of fear and begins staying out of choice, the relationship stabilizes. Until then, the dance of chase and withdrawal continues, pulling both parties into repeated cycles of tension, desire, and avoidance. Recognizing the patterns is the first step. Choosing awareness over reaction is the second, and choosing emotional growth is the final step. For those willing to confront their inner fears, the fearful dismissing dynamic can evolve from a source of pain into a profound teacher of intimacy. It teaches the fearful avoidant that not every absence is abandonment, and it teaches the dismissive avoidant that not every pursuit is suffocating. Ultimately, this dynamic highlights a universal truth. Love is rarely simple, especially when fear is involved, but awareness turns struggle into mastery. So the next time you see a fearful avoidant chasing and a dismissive avoidant withdrawing, remember, it's not cruelty, it's fear, and understanding that fear is the key to breaking the cycle. Relationships are mirrors, and this pairing is a mirror held up to the deepest vulnerabilities and growth opportunities within both partners. When both choose awareness over instinct, the chase and withdrawal becomes less about fear and more about conscious connection. And that ultimately is where real transformation and intimacy begin, far beyond the patterns of avoidance and pursuit. So if you've watched this far, remember this. The chase and withdrawal you see is never about who's right or wrong. It's about fear meeting fear. Fearful avoidants chase because they long for closeness, and dismissive avoidants withdraw because they fear losing themselves. And understanding this is the first step to freedom. The next time you feel caught in these patterns, pause and ask yourself, am I reacting out of fear, or am I choosing growth and awareness? Healing and conscious connection are always possible, but they start with knowing your own worth and honoring your own boundaries. You don't have to fix anyone, and you don't have to chase love that feels unsafe. Choosing yourself is always the strongest move. Remember, the patterns are powerful, but they are not permanent, and awareness is the bridge from chaos to conscious intimacy. If this video helped you see these dynamics more clearly, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs this insight today. And don't forget to comment below. What pattern are you noticing in your relationships, and how are you choosing yourself in the process? Your story matters, your growth matters, and your awareness can break cycles that once felt unbreakable. So go forward with curiosity, courage, and the quiet confidence that comes from understanding fear and choosing connection consciously.